Welcome back to another episode of Elevator Dialogue here on the Unkle Junior Network. I am the Unkle Junior, and with me today are this panel of fine young gentlemen over here, and I do mean young. Ladies and gentlemen, we have right beside me in his orange shirt, repping his brand, Mr. Victor Viziant, Mr. Accountable Masculinity himself, Mr. Two-time best-selling author. Ladies and gentlemen, he got his hair. Later on, you will see it pulled up in a ponytail, but right now he got it. He letting his hair hang low. Mr. Antoine, the other artist, Christopher, and right beside him, ladies and gentlemen, the only mindset coach you will ever need, Mr. Empowering Perspective himself, Mr. Dwayne Dwyer. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Blessed.
Outstanding. Never a dull moment.
Good, man. I love it. Vic got the hair pulled up tonight in a ponytail. Actually, it ain't a ponytail. Let me get it corrected. What's the actual term for it?
I don't know, man.
Bonsai tree.
Hey,
A bonsai tree.
I like that. We call it a bonsai tree. It's a
A
work of art.
bonsai bun. How
Yeah.
about that?
That's a
Bonsai
powerful
tree,
tree.
okay.
What are you talking? That's a powerful tree. Come on now.
Look, me and Coach can't relate. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
I can't relate.
Hey,
yeah, Antoine ain't got nothing down there.
y'all look like
Comes in patches, man.
y'all look like decorative stones in landscaping. Y'all.
Exodus stone.
I never heard that one.
I ain't neither.
You know
Hey,
those
that was a
smooth
good one.
decorative pebbles that they put out there in the landscaping. You know, just throw a little mulch up under there. That's why y'all got the beards.
Hey, it is what it is, man. Hey, welcome everybody. If you're tuned in right now, or if you're watching this on a replay, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe, share it with somebody who you feel may get some value out of this conversation. Later on tonight, ladies and gentlemen, after the show, you can go over on Vic's show, Vic's platform, and check out Code Talk. He'll drop the link here in a minute. It's going to be awesome. So go over there and check it out. Make sure while you're over there, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button and all of those different things. Also, this Friday afternoon, coming up in 2 days, over on the Empowering Perspective podcast, Mr. Dwayne Dwyer, the mindset coach, live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Vic, what time you going on tonight? Before I forget.
8:30 Central Time, so 9:30 Eastern.
So 9:30 Central. So about a half hour. So after you get off this show, you go about a half hour, go brush your teeth, go take a shower, and grab you a snack, lay in the bed and watch Code Talk tonight. It's gonna be some drama going on over there tonight.
Yeah.
So make sure you're over there hitting the like button and all of that stuff. How you doing, Miss Unkle Junior? She just walked in tonight. She was out gallivanting somewhere. I don't know what she was doing. I'm just but she's here. How you doing, babe? She just blew me a kiss. I blew her one too. But hey, anyway, back to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, go ahead, Coach. What you got?
And I was saying, check the private chat. I got a premiere that comes out tomorrow night as well.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There will be a premiere tomorrow night. The Art of Goal Setting. Step 2 of a 7-part process to personal enhancement. Actually, step 2 of the 7-step process to personal enhancement. Coach, I'm jacking it up. Clean it up for me, man.
Yeah, you're
It's
good,
your
man.
show.
You're good. It's a 7-part process. Part 1 was all about the unleashing the power of positivity, and step 2 is all about mastering goal setting. And so tomorrow I am premiering part 1 of the mastering goal setting. So yeah, if you got time, just jump on over, enjoy the show. And it is process oriented, so it's nothing but answers in there.
I like it. I like it. And before the end, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, Coach, Vic, what you talking about again? Go ahead and plug it again.
So tonight's episode is relative to current events, and we're gonna be talking about Carly Russell and like the behavior of sexually undisciplined women. You know what I'm saying? Ended up at the Red Roof Inn, lost on I-459, got a whole city buzzing. Hey man, it's gonna be a lot of questions. And today the press conference came out. I haven't seen the details from the press conference, but from the indications that I have been seeing, it's gonna be a lot more questions than answers. So tune in tonight's show so we can have a discussion about it.
I like it. I like it. Again, thank you everybody who has joined us tonight for this episode of Unveiling Trust and Reliability, Why a Man's Word Holds Immense Value. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Again, like I said, thank you everybody for being here tonight. And the first thing we're going to start with tonight is We're just gonna go around the horn and start and talking about what does it mean for a man's word to be his bond. There are a lot of conversations, there are a lot of talk, there are situations to whereas Vic may call me and he say, "Hey, look, man, I'm gonna call you back," and Vic don't call me back. What I mean? Can I continue to trust Vic as my partner, as my dog, or if he's like, "Hey, man, let's do some business together," should I rely on the fact that he never calls me back, or he never really and this is just a scenario, or he never responds back in conversation and different things like that. So with that being said, we're going to just go start with this question and talk about what does it mean for a man's word to be his bond.
I think I'll start off. Men have code. I think when you start with that, um, it implies that a man's word is his bond. It implies that his word means something of value because, again, when you strip away um, jobs, titles, money, and everything else, all you got is your word, right? And in the words of Scarface, you know what I'm saying? All you got in this world is your balls and your word. You know what I'm saying? So if you can't, if you don't have neither one of those, who are you? And if you're missing one, you don't have the other.
Totally agree with that. And I've lost some major stuff because of my word, right? Being late. I'm gonna be there.
Man, and he got the internet flu.
And if
you muted.
let's say you got you're muted, Garfield. Let's say you got absolutely nothing going for you. People will lend you money and help you based on your word. And if your word is trash before you get there, that's a hard recovery. Yeah.
I'll go before Coach go. I think to me what it kind of talks about is what does it mean for a man's word to be his bond? It's like a lot of things you can't trust, but if you can trust what someone says and they adhere to what the words that they live by and the words that come out of their mouth, that's somebody that you want on your team. That's somebody that's reliable, and in many cases, that's somebody that you can trust with information. Sometimes, when you have someone who doesn't do that, it can have the opposite effect. So I think what it means for a man's word to be his bond is that that's his value, that's kind of tied to who he is as a person and how he is perceived by other people based off of his ability to be able to back up whatever comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it's a twofold concept. Number one, there's power in words. Like I say it all the time, words mean things, right? So it's all about meaning what you say and saying what you mean. That's for starters. But then I also look at words as an extension of your character until your deeds show up. So in most cases, when a person don't know you, when you extend your word to them, that's all they have to go off of. But as time progresses, when they start observing your behavior, your character, and all of that great stuff, then you either validate or you devalue the word that you sent before you. So I think all of that actually factors into what we're talking about when it comes down to a person's word being their bond. Like that word has to be solid. I think one of the shows, I think you guys probably remember the movie Jerry Maguire, where they had, Jerry was trying to, he was trying to be the sports producer. What do you call it? I can't remember right now. Sports agent. He wanted to be the sports agent for the star quarterback coming out of high school. And his dad whipped his hand out, unfolded like, my word is my bond and it's as strong as oak. Well, come to find out, it wasn't as strong as oak because he didn't sign with Jerry. He ended up signing with another guy, which was a competition. So that's kind of like what we're talking about, right? If you say it, you need to be able to back up what it is you say. I don't think, and I know you just used this as an example, but I don't think we can look at a phone call and just take the phone call and just trash the person based upon the phone call because life happens, right? I tell a person in a heartbeat, say, man, I'll call you back in a minute. And then I may get busy doing some other stuff. And then I look at time, and time has gotten away from me, and it might be 10, 11 o'clock at night. Well, I'm not going to call you at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, because at the end of the day, I respect your own personal space and your personal time. But maybe the next day I'll reach out to you and say, hey man, I apologize for not reaching out to you last night, like I said, but this is what came up. I don't explain it because I owe an explanation. I explain it because I extended my word and I didn't stand behind my word. So it's kind of like a twofold process. I know a lot of people tend to go behind the idea of saying, well, you don't owe another person an explanation. I do believe that, but because of your character and the way your character is linked to your word, you provide the explanation because you want the person to understand that you value them just as much as you desire for them to value you.
I get that. And, and I think, just to add some context or behind, why some of this conversation, why we're having this conversation, because this was something that I had struggled with, honestly, some time ago. And, because people would call me because I was like so militant or whatever, right? And so by the book and by my word, and if you say call me, you better call me back, because if not, then blah blah blah. Because it was like I was struggling with the fact that, like I said, Antoine may say, "Hey, Garfield, I'm gonna call you back in 5 minutes," and then in 5 minutes, I'm expecting a phone call back because that's what you said you was going to do, right? You didn't, and then 10 minutes go by, an hour go by. You know what I mean? A day go by, you never call back. 3 days go by, and I was like, I know you sat on the toilet for 5 minutes and checked your phone. It only take 3 seconds to send me a text. You know what I mean? So that was something that I struggled with back in the day, was holding people to their word. Since then, I've kind of changed my approach and I kind of think about it differently. Kind of to what you and Vic was talking about is, it's kind of layers to this thing. It depends on the relationship, it depends on the subject, and depends on the conversation, depending on what we're talking about. Are we talking about a business adventure? And I need you to get back with me, but you can't be relied on to respond or to keep in contact. Where I can't do business with you because I can't trust the fact that you're going to stay in communication. And when a business deal is going down, if I can't trust the fact that you're going to remain in contact, we may lose out on the deal. So I think in that situation, it does kind of go into, it does, the relationship that you have with the person and what you're talking about does play a part in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And just to spin off of that, I agree, especially if we're talking about something serious as a business deal. If
Hmm.
we're talking about some project that we're working on, if we're talking about some type of business, then absolutely. In fact, I may need you to call me back because you're delaying a decision that I need to make. So that actually factors in as well. And I think a lot of times that might be an expression of that person's, I don't want to say untrustworthiness, but it'll probably be an expression of their love. It could be an expression of the future commitment that they're going to have on the project. I think that's another thing. When you look at that, like you look at a person, you gauge their word, you gauge how they move in space, and then that helps you to understand, do I really want to collaborate with this person? Do I want to work with this person? Is this person dependable? Now, if it's like a one time deal, yeah, I'm not necessarily bent out of, wrapped around the axle with just one time. But if it's
Hmm.
multiples over and over again, consistency, I got to chase behind you to get your feedback. That's where I start to draw the line at.
Indicator, that is an indicator. Indicators are not absolute, but they're absolutely indicators. So you
Yeah.
can't act like you didn't see signs.
Right.
So I get what you're saying for real on that.
Yeah. I think this is important in relationships in general. I mean, regardless of who the relationship is with. It's like if you on a micro level can't do things like keep your word when it's you say I'm gonna call you back, and it happens over and over, and every time we talk, I'm gonna call you back, you never call back. It's like, bro, it's like these micro little things can
Mhm.
cause me sometimes to think on a bigger level, to not even, and sometimes won't even take the relationship further, because I may feel or think, at least the data shows, that every time we talk and every time you say you're going to call me back, you never call me back. So, um, all of the things. And do y'all think
It
that,
all depends on who you're asking, right, Garfield? I mean,
yeah.
if you're asking somebody within your wolf pack, that's different, right? Than somebody that's random. So it all depends on who really you're talking about. If it's some friend you're not really close to, you're not going to really take it serious if he doesn't call you back because he doesn't serve a purpose in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The person has to serve some sort of purpose in your life for you to even care. So many people say, "Hey, I'll call you later. Check you out maybe next Saturday," and then never Saturday comes around, goes, and you never hear from them. But you call somebody else to go out, and you didn't even think about that guy that's supposed to call you out for Saturday night. So it all depends on the person too, and what role they play in their life. You know.
So we already been kind of talking about it, but I'm gonna throw the question out there right now. So, in what ways does a man's word carry weight and significance in personal, professional, and societal context? So, I know we just started talking about relationships a little bit. So, how much does this, how much weight does a man's word carry?
I think what Coach was saying is that all of these different behaviors and how it relates to, like the different tiers, talking about, was it personal, professional, and societal context. I think they all have transitive value. Like when he was saying, it might be an indicator. Well, we agreed, like a certain person's behavior is kind of a precursor to how they might deal with something, and it's just might. But frequency, repetition, and outcomes always determine, if that person's behavior is the same no matter what the room or the space is. Like a lot of people, the same reason they can't get promoted at work is the same reason why their relationships don't work, period. So when it comes down to just having basic integrity or integrity that fits the weight of the relationship, that's on the individual. Nobody can make you be more accountable than what you are able to own up to being. So I think, the ways that it carries weight, in the professional, personal, and societal is it can be a reflection or representation of who you are, or people that looks like you. It can be a misrepresentation in the societal space because somebody can draw whatever conclusion or prejudice off of that interaction with a particular person. So if they get the first impression is the only impression that most people never overcome. They get the wrong first impression, it sets a precedent, for that particular person's bias.
Really
Yeah,
does.
I definitely get that. And I think, professionally and personally, I think we have to make sure that we are, how can I put it? All right, so it's like this. So say for instance, we have a relationship with somebody, right? And let's say for this situation, I'm going to use a couple, a man and woman, right? And a man is doing, or he's when it comes to his job, right? He's doing everything that he's supposed to do in his job. He's at work on time. He's always in the right uniform. He does everything that he's supposed to do for his job when it comes to keeping his word. But then when he comes home, he's not doing what he's supposed to do. When it comes to do his word, he's like, "Hey, babe, I'm gonna take out the trash. You don't take out the trash. I'm gonna cut the grass. I'm gonna get along to it." Right. And then now there's discussion because he is doing what he's supposed to do at work, but it's not translating well in his personal life. So when it comes to his word, how do you think something like that? This may be kind of sort of with this. How do you think something like that can cause an issue in a relationship? Now, and I know I use the man, but it can work with anybody in any type of situation when there's a disconnect, when someone's behavior in work doesn't show up in their personal life, or even vice versa.
This is too easy. It's the same complaint that men have about women that go to work and listen to their supervisors, their male supervisors, and then come home and then don't get the wife treatment from the wife that works. You see what I'm saying? It's like if you can go to work and execute your duties to whatever standard that you get paid by, but you come home and don't fulfill your obligations underneath your roof, you're gonna be, judged by that. Because at a minimum, those are just basic things that you probably already, all things considered, that was agreed upon in a relationship. If if you agreed that you were going to take care of this element of the relationship, and then you give all your energy to, like the job, and you don't have it for your own, like household, you're not exempt from the same criticism that we give independent women, that fashion themselves off as being, like they fall underneath the modern woman category or whatever else that people like to usually use to describe it. But different. You know what I'm saying? It's the same behavior. If somebody's going without underneath your roof, you have to adjust, what I'm saying, where you're giving your time and energy to, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're not meeting their needs, or the needs of the relationship rather.
And it becomes very frustrating on the relationship. You get build up stress in the relationship if you're not living up to your duties, right? Because you know your duties. No one should have to chase behind you and say, "Hey, this, hey, that." I mean, it becomes annoying and it becomes tiresome. Eventually, you're gonna stop asking, and eventually, that's gonna lead to other problems in your life, and it's gonna cause you to stray because you just don't want to deal with it anymore. You know, and after a hard day's work, men are more frustrated than women sometimes coming home. They got so much to deal with, and then they got to come home and deal with this, and it's like you're not in the mood, and this, and it becomes very taxing. So that's how I see it.
I think this scenario, although a good scenario, I think it's not just flat. I think there are other things to be considered as well. Um, you also have to consider whether or not the home is I don't want to use a safe space because everybody's using that term these days, but is the home receptive to what it is I bring to the home as well? Sometimes what ends up happening is that people get in a relationship without necessarily having an understanding of the relationship that they get into, and then one person go into the relationship having an expectation to be that provider, that protector, so forth and so on, but then the other person, on the other hand, is saying, I don't necessarily need that. I don't necessarily need you to be a provider. I can take care of myself. I don't need you to protect me at all. I can protect myself until it's necessary for that to actually happen. So I think the job conversation in comparison to the relationship actually brings a lot of clarity to what relationships should be. But I also think within the scope of the job has a different element that we have to consider. The job has a contract. The contract gives you the left to right limits of what you're supposed to do, and it's understood by everybody at the job. To where relationships, especially this day and age, there's a lot of vagueness when it comes down to those relationships. Some people will make it up in their head as they progress along, and it may change from day one to day 2001. And you forgot to tell your partner that your vision of relationship has changed. So a lot of these things, even though it sounds easy, I don't think I don't think it's that clear. And therefore, when it comes down to my word, the word I gave you day one, well, if you're no longer the same person I met day one, then you can't hold me accountable to the word that I gave you on day one. So when we look at it from that perspective, if you're looking at me and you're saying, well, you're not doing this and you're not doing that and you're not doing this and you're not doing that, okay, that sounds good, but you're not who it was I made the agreement with. That's the person I made the agreement with, the person that you have changed into and turned into today. I didn't make an agreement with that person.
The needs of the relationship. There's always, like a point of consideration. That's always like the crux, because like you said, you might come in, like in year one, your needs for the relationship are way different in year 10 than it was in year one.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's the communication part because things change. Things change, man.
And
I'm
and
not.
that, and then that's why your word is so important when you start talking about communication.
People
Yep.
change.
What's
People
that,
change,
coach?
People change.
and
People
scenarios
change.
change, scenarios
People
change.
change.
Change is just the norm.
Well, I will say this. I got what you're saying with scenario changes, but I believe that people drive the change of the scenario. Like, case in point, I give you a perfect example. Like, we may have been married and the kids may be in the house. Kids graduate high school, kids go off to college. Now we're empty nesters again. So that scenario changed, but nonetheless, the scenario does not have to change the people. But going back to the whole communication, I can't remember who actually said that. As long as we're communicating periodically and we have a
Yep.
plan for the changes that are coming to play, then the plan doesn't necessarily change. The scenario doesn't change the people. But a lot of times, what ends up happening is that people use the scenario or the situation as a reason to change. That's
Yeah.
baffling.
And the reason why, well, one of the reasons why I brought that up is being in the military and stuff like that. I've talked to a lot of guys, and I was one of those guys who would put a lot more effort, honestly, into the military and trying to get promoted than what I was doing at home. And like Coach said, there was like let me back up and take that part away. I ain't gonna paraphrase or say anything. But it was like, during that time, it was like I was focused on trying to get the next rank. And although in my head and what I was thinking was I need to get promoted so I can be in a position to make more money to provide a better lifestyle for my family. Right. So that's what I'm thinking in my head, but it wasn't translating well on the other side because me doing that means less time at home, less focus on the boys, less teaching and inputting into them. So good, bad, or indifferent, that's how things were. But I remember always being accused of you care more about that army and more about getting promoted than you do your own family. And being in the military, I've heard that conversation from a number of guys who was in the military, and I've heard conversations and people talked about how even at some point where they wish they would have focused more on their family. It is what it is. But I guess I say all that to say is that sometimes people can be looked at as not given 100% in one area as they are in another area. You know what I mean? So I was definitely guilty of that, and I knew I was doing that. But I thought I was doing it for my family. But at the end of the day, my son probably wanted me there, not really worried about getting the next promotion so I can buy him something else. But
Did you have that discussion with the situation? Did you have that discussion with your significant other, saying, "Listen, I need to make more money so we can do certain things, or I can afford certain things, and that's going to be less time at home." How do you feel about that? How do you feel
um,
about that?
man,
Because you know,
I was trying to get promoted, man.
exactly. No,
Those
I get it.
conversations was irrelevant. I didn't care. It
Okay.
wasn't about what she felt. I was like, I got to look out for me. I'm the one who was responsible for making the money at the time, so it wasn't even a thought to have the conversation. It kind of came up with her bringing it up because all the frustration or mad because I wasn't there to do certain things around the house. You know what I mean? So that's why the conversations came up.
Well, I will add, if I may, um,
Hmm.
I don't necessarily view that as being wrong.
Mm.
I understand how people may feel about that scenario, and I understand how you feel. Hindsight being 2020, I experienced it as well. But then, as time progressed, what I had to come to grips with is that everybody go through that immature state of life. In your earlier years, your goal is to, because that's what your conditioning taught you. Your goal is to, make as much money, get promoted, provide for your family. In fact, that's what society put on your shoulders,
Yep.
right? It didn't tell you to make a bridge with your wife and you guys make a plan on what your career development look like and how does that translate to the family. In some cases, what ends up happening is that if we have that discussion, if one of us, whoever we decide the primary breadwinner is going to be, then we both pour into that person's career. So, what does that actually mean? That means that as the husband who is actually a soldier, if that means that you're going to go to the field, if that means that you're going to end up working late, is that if that means that you're going to end up deploying, well, that means, wife, I may need for you to pick up the slack on my behalf. What does that really mean? That means that it's going to be some times I'm not here. That means that there are going to have to be some conversations that you have with the kids so that you can support the idea that I'm not there. Your dad works hard, your dad does all these things so that we can provide for us. So, what I need for you guys to understand that he wants to be here, but right now he just can't. I think a lot of times that's what we do. If the shoe is on the other foot, if it's her, then we do the same thing for her. Whoever we decide the primary breadwinner is for the house. Now, I have to say it that way because there are women who make a substantial amount of money. There's nothing wrong with that. However, the title for the thing that you just described is cognitive dissonance. What does that really mean? That means that I have an idea of who I'm supposed to be. When I look back at what I was doing, I don't think I lived up to that idea. Therefore, I feel a measure of guilt. What I tell people all the time, relieve yourself of that guilt because you don't know what you didn't know back then, and you can't hold yourself accountable for what you didn't know.
That's when you were talking about like the people change or will have an effect on the trajectory of the direction of things. Yeah, like the situation might come up, but it's how you react to the situation that determines, if it's going to be a failure or success, and how you deal with it. And I get some things. I think a lot of this stuff gets overcome by events, because you got one plan that you should have, and then you got the plan that's the contingency plan if something goes left or right. And a lot of people don't respond to the contingency plan the way that they responded to the original plan. Some people don't have a plan B. Some people don't have a plan C, no exit strategy. It's just, like the next plan is chaos and break glass, you know what I'm saying, in case of emergency. Everybody doesn't have the same fortitude on every level.
I think that for me, men need to communicate. Like men need to communicate. Sorry, men need to communicate the lifestyle that they lead, right? Because I don't think any woman should make any qualms about a man making overtime. Like nothing. There shouldn't even be a discussion about it. I'm glad you like that lifestyle you have, but love ain't paying the bills, and I got a mortgage to cover. That's it. You like the roof over your head? You like the car you drive? You like the school the kids go to? You like the clothes they wear? That's my overtime. Now, do I have to discuss this with you? Yeah, sure. I'll let you know. But you're not going to limit me to put myself into a struggle, love, because you don't see me enough. You should have it ready for when I come home. And if I have energy enough to tap it, yes. But my dinner and everything should be prepared because you like your lifestyle. That's it. Love is not going to, I don't understand why men have to explain this to women, but they want them to lead and they want them to afford things. Where do you think that's going to come from? Like, you think you're just going to magically appear? Or like, even if my woman made more than me, I know she ain't spending it on me.
Well, I'll say this, Antonio, because you got 3 military members up here, right? 3 veterans.
Right.
A lot of us have a provider mindset. We think that, like at a default, like what Garfield was saying about him being focused on getting promoted, and he had some reservations about that. Maybe he had some unresolved guilt. A lot of us that serve, we're very hard on ourselves, which is why Coach was just saying we got to release ourselves from that. We got to forgive ourselves from thinking that everything that didn't work was a failure or something that we didn't plan correctly, because it's different when you in the lead and you're in charge. Sometimes you can be in the lead, you can have authority and not have control. It just depends on where you are. So as a default, we do the things that make sense to do, which falls underneath everything that you was talking about when it comes down to provision, providing, whatever. But I think the husband element of being in a relationship is more of a spiritual understanding than anything, because anybody can just pay bills and just be responsible enough to leave something on auto pay. Because once the money's there, you're not talking about things that are associated with money. Now you're trying to figure out how to maximize the time that maybe your new money affords or whatever extra provision you got.
Right.
And that's the element where Unc was talking about, where he was probably not being he wasn't fulfilling, what I'm saying, based on what he thought, what his kids wanted, what his wife wanted at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Just like Coach is talking about the trajectory of the relationship based on which situations come up. The situations change. Your original plan doesn't make sense anymore, because a plan is only relative to what you got in front of you, and then when it changes, it doesn't matter what you planned 2 days ago if Thursday you got a new situation, So,
Absolutely.
so like it's contingent upon everybody else being flexible too and having room for to be creative in their patience as well. Everybody does not have the same level of creative patience.
No, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with that. And I can only go from my experience growing up, okay? Because for me, back in the day with my dad, my dad did 2 things. Called home, I'm working overtime. My mom never said nothing because all she had was his dinner warm in the oven where he can find. She never quit. He came, never. She understood anything to you. I don't need to, because I'm telling you why we need the overtime. The finances just like me. It's about provision. We got 3 mouths to feed besides you and me, and I ain't starving. I gotta have the energy to work. So I'm just saying, like, these are things you really should communicate, but it should be understood on her part. Now, if you're doing it blindly and you're not there for certain things, certain events, certain things that matter, she has every right to complain. She has every right to say, hey, you know what? You're missing recitals, you're missing parent night, you're missing important things to watch your kids grow up. Okay, now you have to structure it differently. Now you have to step back and go, okay, I can't miss everything, right? But I can be there for the important things. I think that's the communication part that you really need to have with your significant other. And I think once you have that, she ain't calling you to say why you working late. My friend's a lawyer. He says every time I call him, he's in the office. I go, bro, don't you go home? Like, don't you have your wife? He goes, bro, my wife loves the life she has. She knows she only sees me Saturday and Sunday. She don't even say nothing during the week. That's it. He's in court cases. He's this, he's that. She don't even question. She just goes, what time do you want dinner ready? Like, what time do you think you're going to be home? That's it. Because it's understood that, she doesn't work. She's going to have more time on her hands. She's got a lot of PTA meetings and things to do with the house and the kids and to drive them here, drive them there. So that's the understanding you should have. That communication level of communication you should have with your significant other is very important. I mean, I can't disrupt my life if a woman comes in it. I'm looking at her going like, this is me. And, overtime is overtime. And I think you need to have that discussion. But I do understand on her end if she doesn't see you enough.
I do understand what you're saying, but I also want you to consider it from this perspective because most professions you have a choice. Most professions, right? When you start talking about the military, you don't have a choice. When they say you're working late, you're working late. And it may happen at 4:30 in the afternoon when your spouse is expecting you to be home in the next 30 minutes. So you'll end up making that phone call and say, hey, I'm working late. And she probably had dinner plans and all kind of other stuff that she never informed you about. Like these are the very difficult conversations that soldiers have to have with their spouses. And at the end of the day, we want them to understand. Is it a challenge? Absolutely. We may end up missing a child football game, a basketball game, or whatever the case may be, because we have to work late. I get it. I think out of the four, well, not think. Out of the four kids that I have, I've seen one born. That was it. Because every time my wife gave birth, I was gone. I was either deployed, I was in the field, whatever the case may be. And if I was in the field, we tried the best we could to get out of the field. But I was the only person in my squadron with my MOS at my pay grade. So what does that make me?
And did she understand that?
Well, she did understand it, but she didn't understand.
Okay, cool.
She understood
she did it.
Until it happened.
Plan A destroyed.
She understood that, but she didn't understand.
Yeah.
She understood it in the midst of conversation. But she's a teacher. So she'd be at work, she'd see fathers coming up there eating lunch with their kids and whatever, and she said, such and such came up there. I'm like, well, I'm not such and such. Like, if you come to work with me, you'll see as soon as I walk out the office, you got like 5 people calling my name because they need something. That's a whole different animal. When you're the only person in your organization at your pay grade of your MOS, you are a necessity. Like, I would get, well, I would get tasking. My organization would get taskings, and there's no secret who they were tasking. They would task my MOS at my pay grade. Like, come on, man, why didn't you just put my name in op order? So those things actually happen. And unfortunately, you got to make adjustments. And those adjustments have to be articulated at the level of understanding and compassion. And you got to realize sometimes some people emotions just take control and they don't want to understand.
Don't want to understand. They're not even making room for the information. So like hey, going back to what we said before, the plan you start with isn't always the plan you end up on.
Yeah. In the military, I think one thing that's like Coach said and Vic, we talk about sometime in the military is very different. I mean, there are certain things that you just don't have control over. Like Coach said, if you find out at 4:30 in the afternoon that you got to work late, well, you just find out at 4:30 in the afternoon that you got to work late and you just work late. If you get a phone call at 3:00 in the morning, tell you that you got to be in at 4:00 because you got to do a urinalysis, like, you got to answer the phone and you got to come in. Like, these ain't optional. These ain't like you like, nah, boss. I come in when I want to. Hey, you can't even just call in. You can't even just say, hey, look, like right now, what I do if I don't come in, 9 times out of 10, I've already pre-planned. But if it's something that I don't plan for, if I get sick or I'm just like super tired or not anxiety, but my insomnia is acting up and I don't sleep well at night, I can text my boss at 6:30 in the morning and say, "Hey, sir, I'm not coming in today." It is no issues. If I'm in the military, I got to get up in the morning. I got to go see First Sergeant Dwyer. I got to look First Sergeant. I'm sick. I don't want to come in and work. Okay. Oh, and then I got to go do that. And then before then, I got to go tell my platoon sergeant. I gotta go tell Sergeant Vic, my platoon sergeant. You know what I mean? So it's a chain of command that you have to go through. And then I go see a medical doctor, and the medical doctor got to tell me that I am unfit for duty and that I am sick enough, and then they can send me home. So in the military, it's a little different, and things work differently than they do in the civilian sector. So I know sometimes when people listen to us and they may hear us talk, they like, well, the military this and the military that, or they don't understand sometimes how we think about things. And it's because military is a totally different animal. You know what I mean? Like even in the scenario Coach was talking about, if you want to be around your kids and you deployed and you're gonna move from state to state to state, well, in 18 years, we don't live in the same city. So I can't see you. So it may be better for me to bite the bullet for 18 years, stay with you, be around my kids, and then roll out after. Just being honest. So
would you say it's a miscommunication on the woman's part that she doesn't understand what's required in the military?
Nope.
I don't think anybody understands what's
I
required
don't
of the
think nobody
military
understands
until they
unless you're
go
in it.
in.
Unless
I
you're in
think
it.
men do it too. I think even men who get married, they think that, you know, like Coach said, during the conversation, it's understood. But when they get them orders and come home and you tell your wife, look, I'm gonna be gone. We leaving in 6 months, and I'm gonna be gone for 15 months. And you're gonna have to watch all three of the boys by yourself. Totally different conversation.
I totally agree with that. That's why I always stand behind not being married when you're in the military.
Yeah.
It's just not a life. It's like being married to a rock star. Just don't. Because
it can be challenging.
you're missing too much on a life. Too much on a life.
But you don't know.
And you can't make up time.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know what you don't know.
We said this at the ripe young age of 49, 47, so forth and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me that at the age of 20.
I wouldn't even have listened.
Right.
I
probably had some of these conversations. You know what I mean?
That's why I said I would be single and popping them out in different countries, boy.
Yeah. And I know
what you saying?
And I know we're talking about a man's word, and we've kind of shifted a little bit, but I'm totally fine with that because I think some great conversation came about that. And because of that,
I don't think we shifted.
You didn't? Okay.
No, I think we still in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to get to this question from Ennis Williams. This comment. She said the most important thing you can do is spend on kids time. What do you guys think about that? You know, I know there's balance. I know we talked about keeping your word, different things like this. But since we're talking about it and we're already here, is that the most important thing you can do is spend time with your kids? The most important thing you can spend on kids is time.
I think you kind of
if a baby's burping up on the in the crib.
Well, you even said it already. They said if you looked at the time that you missed with your kids, you know what I'm saying, while you were gone. So it's important now, so it was important then.
Yeah, but if the baby's in the crib burping up on itself, you don't really need to be there to watch it. I mean, what are you gonna do? Wipe it?
It's a it.
Yeah.
He made an it.
It's nice to see, and it's cute.
It is still a it.
And it's cute. But
and that's why his internet messing up.
The baby's gonna say
because he called it a it.
Messing up on purpose. He called the baby it. He got instant karma.
Yeah. As soon as you call it,
YouTube like shut it down. We don't want to hear that. The universe
there's certain periods that's a developmental time within kids' life. Yes, you shouldn't miss everything, but the kid should understand the life you lead. I mean, if you're a jet pilot and a pilot, they know that how that's.
If the mother don't understand,
your mother has to correlate that.
Yeah, if the mother don't
your
understand,
wife has to explain
that. Will understand it.
I think that's a vague statement.
Okay, but
I think that's a vague statement. First of all,
I just think that certain things you explain.
Go ahead, Coach.
I think that's a vague statement. First of all, like in theory, yes, I agree. I find no fault in that statement. That's so I want to make sure I'm clear by saying that. But I also think that that statement does not take into account the totality of the situation. When you have different socioeconomic statuses, as a person who is living check to check, person who is trying to make sure that the light stays on, person who is trying to make sure that the food is on the table,
Yes.
you can't tell me that the most important thing that I can spend on my kids is time, because at the end of the day, the most important thing that I can spend on my kids is that check that I'm actually getting from my job to make sure that the lights stay on, make sure that they eat, make sure I got clothes on their back and all that other good stuff. Go look at the TV series Good Times. I think that's the perfect depiction of our community. But again, it's at the lower socioeconomic status. Fast forward, what we have to realize that sure, in our older ages, we may have progressed, but still there are people like that. So there are certain things that I don't mind giving vague statements. When it comes down to, like, and I don't know who Charles Augustus. Well, yeah, I do. So old dead guy quotes, that we call them, right? So when we start bringing up old dead guy quotes, that's great, but you also have to put it into context. When you put it into context, we have to realize that every statement doesn't apply for every situation. That's just like I give you a perfect example, like Republicans, and I'm not trying to turn this into a political debate. Republicans like to use the concept that everybody can pull themselves up by their bootstraps, right? Everybody can make changes. I agree with that to a certain extent, but I also agree that you also have to look at the system that they're caught in as well, because some people exist in a OODA loop of confusion, and it's very difficult for them to move themselves out of it. And then the children that are actually born into that system are adopting those ways, and then they put themselves in that as well. Now, for that particular area, that's the rule. Are there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely. You have people come out the projects and go into the penthouse. I understand that's the case, but that's not the rule. And what I do find is that a lot of times we spend more time talking about the exceptions to the rule, as though the exception is the rule. Let's make
Yeah.
no mistake about it. The exception is not the rule. Therefore, that should not be our primary talking point. Again, I agree with this statement, and I want to make sure I'm stressing that. But this statement is not a cookie cutter response that applies to everybody's situation.
Exactly. I
Appreciate it.
agree with that,
Appreciate it.
coach, because I don't want people to think, oh, time is invaluable with kids. But what's more valuable, the roof over his head, or me watching a baseball game
Yeah.
with him? I mean,
I
you
get all
know,
of that, man. All good stuff, man. Ennis, appreciate you for the comment. All those good things. Bravado, appreciate you stopping by. Walt, always good to see you. Walt says, hey gentlemen, time is a resource that can never be replaced. Time with your kids is valuable. That's also a true statement. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mr. Christopher McClellan. Took him a while to get here. He been taking care of things. He had to go shave and look good before he come on the
there
platform
you
this evening.
go.
I appreciate him. I know he did that just for us, ladies and gentlemen. He did it for you. He did it for all the viewers. He shaved
He
his head
harnessing his baby
late
Rick
for you guys.
Ross.
Baby Rick Ross. There you go. He probably was at the gym. Don't you like them
I was
comments?
actually doing laundry.
Hey. Ain't nothing
Look
wrong
who
with
that
that.
happened.
Look like he had a makeover.
Yeah, man.
How you doing,
Look
Chris?
at them eyebrows, man. Did you have them like, why is it like,
I wasn't gonna go that far.
I
I'm just saying, like he just
I am well.
he just got different appearances. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what he
I,
gonna do next time.
I
He
be the
might
red.
have,
I be the
that
red.
that is a
he might have
blessing.
a head. Hey, that's versatility. See, next week
That is a
he might
blessing.
have he might
I can
have
pull off any look I want to.
yeah, he might be brushing waves next week. You don't know.
Chris said you gotta keep him guessing.
That's it.
Ain't no wrong with that. Hey, with that being said, we going off to this next question. The next question is this: is it ever okay to not keep your word? Is
I
it
think
ever
it,
okay
I
to
think
not
it
keep your word?
depends on who fry you first. Like, I mean, fair game, right? Like if how many times you done burned some customer service people because they didn't, you know what I'm saying, live up to what they said they was gonna do. You know,
Mhm.
I think in transactional relationships, the option to revoke your word is always available because it's like you ever put in a 2-week notice at a job, and then you ever known somebody that's just been fired without like the job ain't gonna give you 2 weeks notice before they fire you. So there's an agreement there, right? And it's based on whatever agreed upon variables and terms, right? that's why, like, if you ever signed up for any app, the most overlooked and least read thing on the internet is the terms of the agreement, and you're forfeiting something. You know what I'm saying? To gain access to whatever platform you might be using, right? Well, it's no different. The minute that you agree to the terms, they, they have full control of whatever it is that they put in the terms of the agreement. But if you decide to stop using the app, they can't make you keep the app on your phone unless you agreed to something, you know what I'm saying, that they gave them proprietary access to your device, right? So you reserve the right to terminate, you know what I'm saying, whatever agreement you have if the terms of the agreement aren't met.
I agree. I so agree with that because I mean, who's really breaking your word? I mean, that's like being a little too sensitive, right? Now, if you call your wolf pack and you go, listen, I really need your help on this tax choice. I'm spending money. Please call me back in 10 minutes. And you say, okay, you know what? I got to just end this thing right now, but I'm in 10 minutes. I'm calling you back. And you don't call. That's different because there was significant meaning behind that. Now, if it's like, hey, you know what? I'm having dinner. I'll call you back after dinner. I just wanted to talk to you about something brief. I don't care if you call me back at that particular time, right? You wouldn't really hold the guy to it and judge him.
But is it okay? Is it okay?
Yes, it's fine. It's
So
fine.
yes, it's okay to not keep your word.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Depending on what it is. Absolutely. And I'm not going to judge you because you didn't call me back in 10 minutes. That means you weren't my friend in the first place. Shit, it's better if you don't call me back.
I think it's situationally dependent.
Yeah, it's situationally depending.
I mean, like you got family members that revoke their word on you all the time. People don't follow up all the time. Other people have no problem
I
revoking.
don't care about other people. I care about us.
I get it.
Men.
Yeah, every man has experienced somebody revoking their word or revoking their trust from them.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
The lesson is that you have to vet better, and sometimes vetting better and acting on it requires you to remove your word. Sometimes it's okay to go back on your word if it involves somebody else in a life or death situation. Sometimes you have to go back on your word to protect people.
So, first and foremost, I want to do this first. In Enos's statement, and you put it up earlier, Ms. Williams, I want to make sure I wasn't necessarily responding to you, ma'am. I was using your statement so that everybody else can have a clear understanding. So I appreciate your question. That's why I wanted to make sure I stressed that I agree with this statement. So everything I said wasn't directed at you. It was just that I don't want everybody else in hearing this to assume that this was like the norm because I've heard it so many times. So that's what I was saying. So no, we definitely. I think we're good there. But again, I just want to stress that it wasn't directly. Everything that I said wasn't directly at you. To your question, Uncle Junior, I think it's a very very simple answer. Is it okay that me, not keep my word? The answer is no. It's not okay that I don't keep my word. However, comma, are there situations where I don't keep my word? Absolutely. But is it okay that I don't keep my word? No, because like I said, my word is an extension of my character until my deeds show up. Once my deeds show up, it validates my word. So, what are the situations that present itself to where I don't keep my word? Like we said, it's situational. When you have a verbal contract between two people and one person actually defrauds on their version of the contract, I am not going to honor that contract at that particular point in time until we come back to the table and have a conversation about it so that we can get back on good terms. Once we get back on good terms, then my word is back on. I don't use it as a weapon, but by that same token, you're not going to hold me hostage to an agreement that we had over here, and you didn't change the dynamics of said agreement, and now you're still expecting me to hold firm to that. No, it doesn't work that way. So, to your question, the answer is no. But by that same token, do we do it? Absolutely. Once the parameters of the agreement has changed.
And see, that's I'm more on that side of it. I'm actually, let's slide it over here. Let's do it like this. I think, we counter on this side and y'all counter on that side over there. Not that we're in disagreement or anything, but I think we maybe kind of be thinking I'm kind of on the same side as coach is like, no, because if I'm okay with not keeping my word, I think that goes, like coach said, that plays a part in my character and who I am and who I want to be known as. You know what I mean? Do I want to be known as the person that can't keep their word, even when it comes to phone calls, even when it comes to those little things. Me personally, I don't. I want to always be able to add value to my wolf pack and to my people. So when I tell coach, I'm going to call you back, if I don't call him back, I worry or I think, how many times is this going to happen before our friendship or our communication becomes further and further? It gets distance to where we're no longer, and he doesn't trust me in other things. So I'm a firm believer that your word is huge and that is not okay. Like Coach said, I think there will be situations come up to where it may be out of my control, or I may, like Vic said, I may not want to keep my word anymore. It could be something bad. It's like, look, bro, you know what? I know I said I was coming to do X, Y, and Z, but right now I ain't feeling it no more. But I'm going to communicate with you and let you know that I'm not going to do that anymore.
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
think that if you're not going to keep your word, I think that you owe it to somebody, then depending on what it is, to communicate that information to the person.
And
Right.
That's
And
me.
technology has made that easy.
What do you mean? Would you say, Coach? I mean, Antoine?
Technology has made that easy. You can text somebody now. You know that excuse where I didn't get your message isn't. I mean, it's not around anymore. Where were you, on the moon? Like, you can lose your phone and find a new one, and all the messages come
Yeah.
back.
That's
So
what I
I
said.
mean,
When people don't text me back, I kind of like,
yeah, it's like, okay,
it's
you know,
not
but I'm not,
that.
depending on the level of friendship.
It
Sometimes
depends
I
on
don't
the
want to.
relationship. If
Yeah,
Coach don't text me back, if me and Coach, like Coach got a thing. If Coach don't text me, if we text more than 3 times, it's gonna be a phone call. Coach probably gonna text me. So I will,
right,
if I don't have time to text Coach back, I won't text him back until later, because I
right,
know it may take more than 3 conversations. We're gonna be on the phone, and I may not be in the place to have the conversation yet. You know what I mean?
right.
With Vic, it's different. He may text and he'll be like, "Hey, yo," he'll just text yo, or
Yeah,
he'll text me with 2 eyes. And if I ain't busy, I'll hit him back. But I already know that we've already communicated and we've already established these ways of communication. So we already know. I know if Coach don't text me back, I know Coach busy. I know if Vic don't text me back, he busy. But some people, if they don't text me back, it's because they just don't want to. Because every time we communicate, I'm the only one who's calling. I'm the only one who's taking the initiative to make the conversation or to have the relationship. So I know that it's more so, at least in this time period, maybe I'm more invested into a relationship than the other person is. And it's
and,
okay for me to take a step back and be okay with not communicating as often, because I don't want to feel like my relationship with anybody is one fold.
And I think the piece to add to that as well is that, sure, my word, the extension of my word, I'm accountable for that. I think too many times what people try to do is hold you hostage to your word as well.
I agree.
I think the other side of the relationship has to give you the space to realize that you're human. If Garfield texts me, if Vic texts me, whatever the case may be, and at the end of the day, um, at the end of the day, I missed the mark, or I'm sorry, if they text me and they say they'll call me shortly or whatever, and then they don't call back. When he calls me and say, "Hey man, I know I was going to reach out to you. I apologize," I automatically say, "Man, it's okay. It's not that serious. That's just me. I
This is
don't."
about intent.
Right. It's all about intent. It's all about knowing the person. If
Yep.
I know the person, I understand it was no ill will behind him not texting me back.
exactly.
He got a whole wife he got to tend to. I don't come before she do. I
Right.
It's
respect.
like, exactly. It's like, I don't talk to you guys on the regular basis, right? So I, right off the bat, okay, you know, they don't need to call me. But I know if you guys call and you say, "Hey, Antoine, I got to talk to you about something," just common sense and knowledge would tell me, "Wait a minute, these guys don't even talk to me." So for him to say, "Call him back," there's got to be something that I need to hear or he needs to discuss. So I'm making that priority like that, because I don't talk to you on a regular basis. So for you guys to call me, there must be a reason. Things like that. Like, I would use my judgment. If I tell my friends, "Oh," Vic goes, "Hey, you know what? Hey, Vic, I'm drawing from A to Z," and Vic says, "Okay, I know A to Z Antoine's drawing, so I know if I text him in between there, he ain't seeing the text, but he's not gonna hold judgment to say, 'Hey, you know, I sent you that text at 6 o'clock and it's now 9 o'clock and you're responding.'" I'm like, "Yeah, what's your problem?"
It's about expectation management.
Yeah.
It's about establishing, like, again, we're talking about we're I won't say gray in the lines, but you got vetted relationships that you're gonna do everything within the spectrum of those vetted relationships, meaning that I'm going to trust you with certain things. I'm not going to trust you with everything. You know, if you're bad with money, the last thing I'm going to do is throw you $100,000 and say, you know what I'm saying, keep my money safe. Now, I might be able to trust you to keep a secret, so I might throw it in a safe. You know what I'm saying, and keep the key, but keep an eye on this. You don't need to know what's in it or nothing. You just need to keep the secret. You see what I'm saying? I think you have to compartmentalize people the same way. You like I anticipate more people not keeping their word than me not keeping my word. And it's because the human element that Coach was just talking about, leaving room for adjustments and things that are outside of your control that may affect, you know what I'm saying, the other person's capacity to keep the word. Because you may have the will, but do you have the capacity and do you have the capability? A lot of people, if they could agree to every single thing and show up for every single thing, then they would be present at every single thing. But that's not realistic. Some people overbook themselves all the time. You know, there's been times where we want to show up on each other's platforms and we say we're going to show up, but Uncle tell me, hey, I went to sleep because I come on at 8:30. You know what I'm saying? 9:30 his time. Coach said the same thing a couple times. You know what I'm saying? But for you, Antoine, you present all the time because you're on the West Coast. Right. So you got a different type of availability. So like I don't say, Antoine, will you show up? Antoine's already like, hey, I'll be there if you want me to watch. You know what I'm saying? And he's gonna support. So like everybody has other obligations that they have to, you know what I'm saying, keeping the right spectrum too. But if the other person doesn't do the relationship cultivation that it makes that makes for a better atmosphere to keep your word, then the first one off the chopping block is the one with the least amount of investment. That's just what it is, you know, and it's sad to say it that way, but until you become more visible, more present in the other person's dialogue, conversation, and regular, you know, like access to them, it's going to be hard for them to kind of count on you until you're consistent too. So a lot of times when people don't hold their word, the relationship usually doesn't have the connection that the other person thinks it has.
Is it do you guys have people in your lives where, wait, I don't want to say this right because it sounds really bad. Like how do I say it? There's people in your lives where you really don't care if they call you back or not. Like you don't care. Do you have those kind of friendships? Like in other words, acquaintances.
I don't call them friendship. I call them more so
acquaintances, right?
Those transactional relationships.
Transactional, and sometimes those people are, what's the word? Sometimes those people are relatives. I'll put it like that. Sometimes those people are relatives, right?
Really? As in family?
I think, huh?
As in family? When you say relatives, as in family?
As in blood relatives.
Wow.
I don't think that all relatives are family. But that's how I believe. Just because we're related doesn't make us family. That makes us relatives. Like there are people on this podcast that I consider more of my family than people that I'm related to, just because of their relationship. Just because we're blood. I mean, if you want to go all the way back, at some point, we're probably all got the same blood at some point. So it is what it is. So blood doesn't necessarily make us family. That makes us related. Makes us kin.
Wow, really? It's amazing. I wasn't raised like that. That's incredible.
I know, but even though you've been on the show, but anyway, we've had a show like that. You can go back and look through the Rolodex of like that, family versus friends, or family versus.
Oh yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, that's a previous episode, by the way.
You know, we probably need to have another one of those, maybe one day.
Follow up.
The follow up show, but I got off track and I lost my train of thought. But couple comments. Roland said, so cuz others do it, it's okay. But I think we kind of cleared that up.
Yeah, that's extreme.
And then Charlotte Ann had one. So how do you build trust if you don't keep your word? So what do you guys think? How do you build trust if you don't keep your word? And I think we kind of may have already hit it, but one or two people go ahead and hit this if you want to.
Depending on who the person is. I don't care if I don't build trust with you. You don't play a significant role in my life. I don't need to build trust with you.
I think
that's simple.
But if it's somebody that is important in your life, how do you build the trust if you do not?
Because we're gonna have a rapport.
It's just like what I said earlier too. Trust is built on reasonable
Yeah.
expectations and repetition. If you're not
Right.
present and you're not repeating the process and you're not, solidifying that relationship and actually making it mesh with what you got going on in your life and what I got going on in mine, then you can't expect people to invest in keeping their word.
Absolutely. Can I say this? I think that at a certain age in your life, you should have people in your life that matter, family that matters, and anything outside of that, you shouldn't care. It doesn't have any relevance. It's not going to shape your life in any way. There's nothing wrong with telling anybody, I don't need everybody to like me. I just need you to respect me. I don't need you to like me. I got enough friends, trust me. And the more friends you have, the more money you lose anyways.
So how about the question? So how do you build trust if you don't keep your word?
Rapport.
I say you can. I say it's hard to build a relationship. I say it's hard to build trust if someone doesn't keep their word. That's me. I think is unless someone have an example or something, I'm on the side that
Yeah, but that's a
it's
reason.
hard
Because
to keep. It's hard to build trust if I or someone else doesn't keep their word.
yeah, but that's a reason. You're saying it because they don't keep their word. I'm looking at that question from how do you build trust with somebody you just met, like you guys. I've built up trust with you guys over the time of doing the show. That's an honest back and forth exchange. For me, I could trust you guys. I feel that I can at least, right? But now, if none of you've ever kept your word and all this and that, you didn't show up, I'm the first to say, well, hey, why is this guy on the show for? I'm the first to say, no, it's not worth it. But over time, I say, okay, you know what? I could trust Vic for this. I could trust Coach for this. I'm good. That's why I follow them. That's how I look at it.
I have a two-pronged approach to this question because I think it's a great question. The first and foremost, trust is built through transparency. That's what that is what the tenets of leadership will have us to understand. Trust is built through transparency. So the more vulnerable I am, the more open I am, then it gets to the point to you start trusting in me. But the second part to this question is that you were never supposed to trust me in the beginning. The Bible told me to trust in the Lord, not you.
Amen.
There you go. Well, I ain't responding to that. I like that one. I like that.
I missed that one. Can you say it again? What did you say? I missed that one. What did you say?
Said trust in the Lord, not man.
Oh, okay.
It says trust in the Lord
That's what the scripture said.
with all that heart and lean not into your own understandings. In all your way acknowledge him and he will direct your path.
Yes, sir.
Y'all ain't know Coach was raised. You ain't know I was raised in church.
Oh, I know.
Hey,
God really knows what you're doing, anyways. You know what I
huh?
mean? God knows what you're doing, anyways. I mean, He knows. You know, anytime you say, God, I ain't gonna do this no more, He knows when you're peeking. He knows.
He can.
Oh,
Hey,
grab that one. Grab that one.
which one?
That one, that there. You see it?
What are you guys looking at?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
see it?
I'm gonna grab them. All right, so I'm gonna run through these comments real quick,
Yeah,
and then we're gonna jump to the next question before we end up
What are you guys looking at?
Charlotte Ann. You talking about Charlotte Ann's?
No.
Oh, the other one from our
No,
Facebook.
I just seen
Facebook
her.
one?
Yeah, I'm talking about the Enos.
Okay.
I just seen
Um.
that one.
Oh, go back. Charlotte Jordan, appreciate your comment. There was a time when your word was the best credit you had. I remember that. I'm still guilty. I am not perfect. I still struggle with this. This was a huge problem for me years ago, but I still do struggle sometimes with holding people to their word. That's just me. Grego,
Okay.
appreciate you being here. Back to Roland. Roland not here today, but he in the comments. Appreciate you being here, my brother. Chris, I guess he was having technical difficulties, so he's been in and out. He'll pop up, but he's not here. Tried to have him on. Wish we could get his words, but we couldn't. But still got poor man Dr. Phil here today. He said I get situations, but when I told my grandkid that I was going to get him if he did it again, I had to be a man of my word or they try me. That's true. When you're raising kids, you don't want
Yeah.
to back down and tell them you're going to do something and you don't. It'll mess up teachers and stuff like that too. When you say you're going to do something in your classroom, you got to follow through.
I like that too because
Just-
that's relative to your position and your stature. I think
Mhm.
some people are not afforded the opportunity to not honor their word.
Yeah.
Like a pilot, you know what I'm saying, can't say oops.
Yeah.
That's way different than
Air
a
traffic controller either.
air traffic controller. Gotta honor their word that they have to verify, check. You know, in some positions that are not afforded the same margin of error. So your word is relative to where you're at, you know.
Yep.
So
And you have to take accountability for your words, what comes out of your mouth. You gotta
Yeah,
own it.
man. Hey,
You know,
poor man
I
Dr.
never
Field
did that.
again. Poor man
You know?
Dr. Field again said, "You not pay your bills is keeping your word, and it reflects on your credit." That's true. Don't pay your bills. Watch what happens. Grego, appreciate you being here. Ennis again. Political. Donald Trump has such loyal. How Donald Trump has such loyal followers?
What do you mean how?
everybody's like the like-minded people that get behind him. They got their own set of morals and principles. I think whatever your word is relative to your morals and principles, you know, and everybody's not going to agree. I think that we look at it like this: the world isn't perfect, people aren't perfect, situations aren't perfect, and everybody ain't going to agree. You can't have it both ways, so you can't expect to go through life thinking that everybody's going to confirm your bias. That's just what it is.
And be careful.
Thank
The
you.
race is going to be between Donald Trump and DeSantis. That's what I'm saying right now. You guys think he has no? Everybody thinks he's just. Let's see. That's all.
Hey, we talk about that we talk about that on your show when you start. Ain't you,
Yeah,
no,
we can talk
I
about that
think
on Antoine's show.
no. You should do a painting of Donald Trump, Antoine. You should go in and
Pay
talk
me
about
enough.
it the whole time.
Pay me enough. It's done. Done.
Yeah, he said, "Pay me enough."
Pay me enough.
Hey,
It's done. I'm good.
hey,
I live with that.
Charlotte Jordan said can't argue with Coach, so she obviously she's agreed with what he said too. It's gonna be the last. Nah, man. You know what? Y'all do true or false, or y'all want to go to this question right here? Which one y'all want to do?
You're the leader.
Both.
Wherever you go, we
Let's
follow.
do it, man.
Man, we had 13. We ain't got a lot of time. So all right, so let's do this real quick. Let's do this. Because we want to add some solutions. So what are some challenges men face when trying to keep their word? We may have hit a lot of them already. Seems like it, but if anything that we hadn't hit, feel free to jump in on this before we hit a couple of these true false questions.
And when he says he's gonna do it, I think is a main one. Like when you say you're gonna do something, but the time ran out, you got distracted, something else took priority. I think we put on sometimes we put a lot on our plate, you know, because we want to do it all and fix it all. And I think maybe men take on a lot on their plate. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Overbooking yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I said earlier. Like one of the things I tell you that I would say I underestimated is that I didn't realize how busy my life was seriously until like maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, man, I got to really start like, you know, using my calendar more, you know. Never thought I'd get to a point in my life where I need a calendar because, you know, like for a better part of our lives, you know, through a good chunk of our adult professional lives, we was in the military. So we knew exactly where we were going to be and the confines of, you know what I'm saying, what our calendars was already mapped out. But when you got to start structuring yourself, that's a little bit different. And then you're handling like your admin and then the admin for whatever it is that you're working on, you know, and that's relative too. And then some of that stuff, like you'll box yourself out. You end up missing lunch, you end up missing meetings, you end up oversleeping, you know, you become you know, like a little bit more erratic than when you want to be. So I think schedule conflicts also interfere with people keeping their word, which goes back to overbooking.
You got something, Coach? He there looking, but he ain't saying that. He might can't see.
All right, yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, man. I don't know what happened just now. So, first and foremost, DeSantis and Trump are both Republicans. But moving on. So I think the issue is balancing what I said against what I'm saying. I think that could be one of the issues, or one of the challenges men find or face when trying to keep their word. What I said is based upon what it is I wanted to do. What I'm saying is based upon what I need to do. The art of decision making sometimes will have you to go against some of the things that you said in the past under perfect scenarios. I think we all exist under what I tend to call the three C's of existence. At some point in your life, you'll find yourself within the scope of one of these three C's: competition, crisis, and conflict. And when you look at it, you're existing in one of those spaces. When I hit crisis or conflict, I forgot everything I said because I'm practicing the art of decision making so I can mitigate crisis to avoid conflict. But if crisis ever get the conflict, don't remind me of anything I said. I got to get rid of this conflict first so I can bring it back down to competition. And when I say competition, make no mistake about it, I'm not competing against anybody else. I'm competing against myself.
Look, hey coach, you got the three C's. I got three words: problems, solutions, and opportunities. So like one of the first one, like you said, crisis kind of pairs well with problems. You got to solve that first because your original plan is solid until you got a problem. Then you look for solutions and opportunities, and people and their word has got to be associated with one of those three things. You know what I'm saying? Do they cause the problem or do they solve the problem? Are they a solution oriented person or or do they provide opportunities? Because if you get the problem solved, you're gonna have more solutions and more opportunities.
Right.
If you got a person that causes the problem, it'll stop you from getting to the solution and stop you from getting to the opportunity. So I think it's twofold. You know what I'm saying, that those things can play against themselves, and human beings fall into one of those three categories at all times, or all of them. So you may have somebody that can solve problems. You may have somebody that is just the solution oriented person solves problems, right? And also creates opportunities, or at least just puts out the fire initially, and now you can see better and you can create opportunities out of that. So I think the important thing is knowing what the individual creates, so you know where to put your expectations. And this is about expectation management, and it's about following up too. And I think a lack of follow-up is part of keeping your word too.
I think one of the challenges that men face when trying to keep their word is life. You know what I mean? You know, we all kind of talked about it at some point is life happens. There are things that are going to come up in our life that's going to take priority over something that we already gave our word to. You know, I've already given my word to Antoine or Vic that I'm going to show up tonight at Code Talk at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. You know what I mean? 9:05, I may get a call from Charlotte Jordan saying, "Hey, son, look, this is what's going on in my life," and I may have to deal with that. You know what I mean? So now, no longer life just happened. I may still be on the phone or dealing with the situation with my mom to where I can't get back to Coach. I can't get back to Vic until 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. Well, I'm not calling Vic at 11 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? There's a time limit into when I can call people. However, if I get up in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, sometimes I might be able to text Vic because I may look and Vic might be just got off or might be on Facebook because his insomnia is acting up and he can't sleep. You know what I mean? So I may be able to text him then towards I couldn't before. But either way, like I said, life is one of those things that happens to all of us. And that's just something that we all face, we all have to go through. And that can be one of the challenges and why sometimes people don't keep their word. And if someone doesn't keep their word, I think before you fly off the handle about it, I think one of the things you should do is figure out why that person wasn't able to keep their word. And, you know, it is what it is. Not that they have to justify why they didn't keep their word or that they owe you an explanation. But like Coach said, you know, you can go back to the video and hear what he said. But he talked about that early in the show. But
Life be life, man.
Life be lifing.
I'm gonna need y'all to stop talking about that insomnia like it's a hat y'all put on though. That's all I'm saying.
Man, I'm just being, it's
him.
one of the things that I think at least three of us up here deal with.
Yeah.
At some point. So it's like we can have a conversation about it because we get it. Whether or not other people understand it or not, it's like you talking like
yeah. I know what you mean. Get 4 hours of sleep and then pop back up like this right here, and
yeah, man.
Part of my life.
Get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I might have some. So all right. So Jimmy, ladies and gentlemen, what we're gonna do? We're gonna do true and false questions right now. Last week, most of our questions were false. So this week we'll see if we have any true questions in here. So the first question, the first true false question of the night, and if you're in the chat, feel free to jump in, hit your true, hit your false, put your response in if you feel like it. join and be part of the show as we start closing out. So true and false. First question of the night is true, false. A man's word is his bond, implies that he always keeps his promise without exception. So say false.
False.
I say false. Yeah, we just talked about that. There are going to be some situations like life to come up that I can't keep my word. You know what I mean? It's not my intent. I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm not. And I think if you're the type of person that goes in it with like, you know what, I ain't going to do this, or you go into it with a negative attitude or a bad disposition to just do something and not call somebody back on purpose, then I think that's a whole nother thing. We're not really talking about those people, but there are people who do that. You know, women out there and dudes out there that curve people all the time. But Antoine, would you say false?
Yep. Only a cis believes in absolute, in the words of Yoda.
All right. True, false. Trust and reliability are crucial factors in building strong and lasting relationships.
Trust and reliability. Yeah, I'd say true to that. That's a true for me. Yeah.
I say true, but they're only part of it. So if I get if it's just true or false, they're true, but only as two of the things. I think that if I can't trust Vic and he's not reliable, I don't think that we're going to have a strong and lasting relationship. So
Yeah.
that's my. You say, Coach?
I'd put understanding in there too, by the way, but that's me.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said. I think it's
I go back to what I said.
yeah.
Again, I don't need you to trust me. I just need
Mhm.
you to look at me as being trustworthy. My intentions are good, but I'm human. I'm going to fail you at some point in time.
Yeah.
It's not malicious. It's just human nature.
Can't have it all. The world ain't perfect, and this is the perfect part. This is the imperfect part of your independence. You know what I'm saying? As a person, it's like you don't control everything. Like ideally, if everything was perfect, all of this wouldn't even be a conversation because everybody would live up to the word that that they say to everybody, and all conditions would be ideal. But it's not like that. Something can change. Like we still waiting on. Like think about it. Antoine said he was going to paint something for us almost 2 years ago. You see what I'm
I just want you to know, I thought about that. I swear to you, I thought about that today. And now I'm prepared because I finished what I was going to do, which I will reveal next week on this show. What took me so long with this thing.
Hey, you heard him. Hey, that's his word.
That's
what
my
he said.
word.
That's his word.
That is I finished this thing and I'm revealing it next week on the show. My word is you guys are my next project.
Clip that. Clip that right now.
Give you my word.
The title of it
I draw.
The title of it is what?
Pink Flamingo. That's what he's going to unveil.
He's going to unveil the pink flamingo, Antoine.
That's what's up.
Wait till you see it. You'll understand.
So yeah, I told you.
Yeah.
A man's word being his bond is a true false. A man's word being his bond is a concept that only applies to men and not women.
I don't
True.
believe that.
And I'll say this: it's true only because by popular acceptance.
Yeah.
Like I think every person that is an accountable adult should ideally live up to whatever they say they're going to do. But that goes back on to what Coach says. Like, it's not that he don't trust anyone. He just looks at people's trustworthiness, and you have to put people in a box. So it's true with restrictions because nothing is perfect. Even if you go back, anybody ever seen The Godfather? You remember Vito told Michael Corleone? He said, women and children are allowed to be reckless, but men cannot afford to be reckless, So if anybody has to keep their word, it's expected it's expected for it to be men. So anything else after that is like a plus. So, I think that it's more important for a man to establish his trustworthiness, saying, than anybody else.
I agree with that.
Nothing further to add.
Nothing further to add.
Agree.
Moving along. Keeping commitments, true or false, keeping commitments and honoring one's word is essential for maintaining a positive reputation.
False.
With strangers, yes.
True.
True.
What you mean with strangers?
Because
Why does it pertain to strangers and not family or friends?
well, because you're honoring. Everybody knows who you are. When your family and friends are so close to you, they know how you are. You know, they know you. It's a different.
So are you saying that you honor more commitment with strangers than family, or that because you are a family, they should accept you not honoring your word?
There's more grace when it's family.
See, that's the exact problem that I have, and that's the exact reason why I separate family from relatives, because family expect you to give them grace just because we're family. That's freaking BS. You give me,
No,
I
I
give you
believe
grace.
that.
I give you grace because you've shown me grace and you're respectful and you treat me as such, not just because we have the same bloodline.
No,
You
that's
don't get a
different.
pass because you have a bloodline.
But it's the relationship I'm talking about. I'm speaking in general. The relationship is what I'm talking about. I give family grace.
If the person in the family is considered my family and not just a relative, then there is the relationship there. But if we don't have a relationship and we're just related, I don't like the fact that a lot of people, because we're related, like to take advantage of the fact that we're related
But
and the
that's again
fact that we're
situation.
family.
It goes beyond genetics.
But that's again situational. So I'm just saying
It
in
is.
general. In
Yeah.
general, my family gets grace. In general, I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on who. Like some of them I don't even know because they don't live here. But in general, they get a certain grace.
I don't think
And
this. I don't think this has to do with
Huh?
anybody else. I don't think this has to do with anybody else. I think,
Yeah.
Antoine, if you consider yourself like you consider you're an artist, right? This has to do with you, not anybody else. So when you look at it, keeping commitments and honoring one's word is essential in maintaining a positive reputation. You don't want to tarnish your reputation in your professional field.
Yeah,
It has nothing to do with anybody else.
yeah,
Family,
exactly.
friends, whatever, totally irrelevant.
That's it. That's what I'm like.
Me extending grace to you is because of you.
That's
It's
how I look at it.
right. Me extending grace to you is not because of you. It's because of who I am and who I'm called to be.
All right, last one, and we're gonna roll on to the pack wisdom. So, with that being said, true, false, effective communication is not a significant factor in a man's word being considered his bond.
Effective.
Big say false.
Effective. I think that's true. Oh no, I'm going to go.
You can't establish the rapport that your word is connected to if you're not an effective communicator.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Right,
if the
I'm gonna say
intent
false.
isn't received, articulated, comprehended, and then
Yeah, I'm
applied,
gonna go to.
executed, then did you ever communicate? I might
Yeah.
say I want something to eat, but you bring back something that I don't want to eat. You still answered the mail in general, but if I don't give you the details and you bring me back something that you want and it doesn't agree with me, I communicated that I wanted something to eat. You brought back food, but it's not what I wanted. So is it effective communication? Somebody's going to say, yes, it is, because you still brought food. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But was my intent, like my absolute intent, communicated? And that's when like you get into conversations about who's the mind reader. When you're having mind reader conversations, you're not effectively communicating.
Gotcha. Y'all ready? Let's do it.
Look, hey, the best way to see Men of That Word is to tune in on Wednesdays to Elevated Dialogue. We show up every week, and it's about commitment, consistency, and repetition. We've been doing this as a trust exercise, which is really, really cool, as it matches up very well with tonight's topic. In order for you to build a rapport and trust that is associated with the bond that is your word, you have to be consistent and you have to show up and be useful to other people. So if you want your word and your reputation to precede you, then you do the work that's in front of you and you build the relationships with the people that pour into your cup, and then never work off of anything less than your overflow. And then you can create solid expectation management amongst people that trust you?
I'm gonna go with understanding. I think that you need to have. I think you need to have certain people in your life that know you. It's not you keep your word to certain people. It all depends on who you're doing business with. If you're meeting a new client, meeting business, when it comes to family, because they're family. Not all family, but I'm talking about in general. And people that know you, like they really know you, they're within your circle, they're part of your wolf pack. I believe that they understand how you operate. So they don't hold you to your word, but they hold you to your word, but not necessarily to the point where it's going to damage the relationship you have. But it's your job to act accordingly and respectful of their time and their understanding to that, right? So it's not about just doing a free fall and letting them, you know, not respecting them. I think you have to have a certain level of respect just because you know that they know you so well. So you shouldn't take that for granted just because they know you so well. So your word should hold up with them, but them understanding you so well, they won't pass judgment on you.
Your word is your bond is something that I've been hearing since I was probably in elementary or middle school. If you are a man and you want to have a certain, I think that your image and how you portray yourself to the public and to the family and how you present yourself as a person or as a man is important. And I think that one of the things that is very important is, are you a trustworthy man? Can you be trusted by other men? Can you be trusted by other men in your wolf pack, in your circle? Can you be trusted at work? All of these things have to do with, or they play a part in your overall image as a man. Of course, there are other things that go into it, but your word and your bond and whether or not people can trust you is very important, because if people can't trust you, people don't want to do business with you, people won't promote you, people may not want to be your friends. So I think, me personally, that your word and being a man who can be trusted with his words is very valuable, and it's a very valuable asset that men should have.
I think it was a lot of great comments that were made, and I advise everybody to go back and take a listen to them again, because me and these brothers are synced when it comes down to this. I will add to what they're saying, that I think when it comes down to my character is my responsibility. The extensions of my character are found in my words and my behavior. So when it comes down to it, I hold myself accountable to my word. I hold myself accountable to the character that I portray. It is not anybody else's responsibility, nor is it my responsibility to hold anybody else accountable to their word or to their character unless we're in a relationship. Relationship is a gateway to training. I've said that several different times, and I'm going to continue to say that. Relationship gives me the right to have difficult conversations with, like, the wolf pack. Right? We can have those difficult conversations because we can bring behavior to their awareness, because you got to realize everybody has blind spots. It's not a personal attack. We're not dragging them through the mud or anything of that nature. We're helping them to maintain accountability or maintain responsibility. I'm sorry. We are accountable to one another. That's what relationship affords us to do. So when it comes down to our word, we should strive to ensure that we fulfill the promises of our word, not necessarily because of anybody else, but because of the commitment I made to my Father in heaven. So that's how I look at it. Because of my commitment to him, the overflow that comes through me to everybody else is the character that I want to portray. So I present myself trustworthy. I present myself friendly, so forth and so on. And I believe that's the answer. If we get to the point to where we stop trying to put people on the witness stand because they did not meet our expectations, then we can actually have better relationships.
Amen. Whole bunch of great conversations tonight, a bunch of great words. being transparent tonight. So I really appreciate you gentlemen for being here. Appreciate all the feedback in the chats and different things like that. Appreciate you, everybody who has been here watching, regardless of what platform that you're on. Don't forget tonight in less than an hour, go over on Code Talk and check out Code Talk. And then in 2 days, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, go over there on Coach's platform and check out the Empowering Perspective podcast. Mr. TMI, appreciate you being here tonight, gentlemen. Also, log over on the Mr. TMI. His link and everything, information for his channel is in the description below as well. So all of our information is in the description. You can check us out. You can find out where we are and where we hang out at on social media and our different platforms and different things like that. If you want to subscribe or check us out or anything like that, feel free to do so. Again, like, share, all this information, different things like that. And we will be back again next week at 8 p.m., actually 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with another great episode of Elevated Dialogue. And that's it for tonight. We will see y'all again next week. We out.